get started with the channel part of today's Green Jobs. I have four amazing people here to talk to you all. Basically, how I was thinking of programming is I would for a quick intro, ask a couple of general questions, and then you all, I want this to be a space to ask questions. So feel free to raise your hand and ask any questions to any specific panelists that you want to ask them about. I will just ask each person for a quick intro about what you all do, potentially maybe even how you got into sustainability in the first place. Start with Danya here.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Danya, she, her. I'm the Climate Preparedness Project Manager in the King County Executive Climate Office. So our office is just, we're in King County. We help guide a lot of the climate work that happens in the county, though it happens in many different agencies that are doing great things, like Timothy's agency. But we lead the Strategic Climate Action Plan, which is just kind of King County's 5-year blueprint for climate action. And we have a lot of different partners in that. So it's not just the climate office, it's other agencies like our Department for Natural Resources and Parks, Public Health. That's just a little intro with the office that I'm in. Specifically, what I do is I focus on the climate preparedness side of things. So different plans and programs to help King County communities be more prepared for the impacts of climate change. And that varies from lots of things like wildfire to flooding to extreme heat, as well as extreme cold. But my main focus is extreme heat, though branching out into a few other hazards as well. And that's mainly my goal. I can go more into background. Are we doing that later? Or? Okay, so you're hearing it all right now. So for me, when I started, I actually went to UW and I thought I was going to be a neurobio major because I was like, I'm not doing calculus or physics. And then surprise, I applied to bioresource science and engineering here at UW just because I really liked the research. I was really into biofuels. I liked the faculty a lot. And while that was a lot of fun, I liked learning more about renewables and kind of like the biofuel piece of it. I was seeing how climate change was impacting the different places that I call home. I lived in King County pretty much all my life, but I was born in South India and I visit my family. I'm really close with them. So climate change has been pretty devastating in both places. Interestingly enough, it's been somewhat kind of similar hazards sometimes, like lots of flooding, lots of extreme heat, and also recognizing that not everybody's impacted the same. There are so many times where unfortunately your zip code or even people's bank balance really determines how they're impacted by climate hazards. So I think that public health piece of it, as well as the community piece of it, is what was missing for me more in engineering. So that made me want to come back to UW. And then I pursued a master's in environmental health. So that's in the School of Public Health in the Department of Environmental and Occupational Health Sciences, DEOHS. There we go. Still remember it. But there I did focus more on wildfire and the impact on pediatric populations in Seattle. And that's where I feel like I got to learn a lot more about the impacts of climate change on health, but also on a more hyper-local level. How is it affecting our communities in Seattle and in King County? So that was sort of my lead-in, and I can go more into my professional background, how I entered in King County maybe later, because I've been rambling at you for a long time now. But yes, yeah, I feel really fortunate to be in this role and to be on this panel with you. So.
Thank you, Danya. Hi, everyone. Timothy Randazzo here. I use he, they pronouns, and currently I work at King County's Department of Natural Resources and Parks, Solid Waste Division, and I am a Green Building Program Associate. So a lot of the work that I do is around the green building sector, both within King County and our capital projects. So capital projects means anything that we're doing construction on or demolition. So this is like our roads, our waste infrastructure, our parks, and solid waste, water and land resources, wastewater, all that kind of stuff. All of our projects internally at King County are mandated and required to meet sustainability requirements. So it's my team that help those projects to align with those requirements and plan to be as sustainable as possible, basically. So they can achieve any sort of rating system. You might have heard of LEED before. You know, you have some LEED buildings here. Living Building Challenge is another one. There's Salmon Safe, Envision, Fitwell, like all these different green building rating systems. And then we have one internally as well that our team has created so that projects can use our internal one. So I provide technical assistance for a lot of all these different projects to be more sustainable and also equity focused. So equity and social justice is also mandated by King County Code as well. So all of our projects have to adhere to ESG initiatives and outcomes in their projects. And my team has created a framework for how to do that in capital projects. That's the internal side, kind of like that nerdy technical piece. And then I also get to do some external facing green building work, such as education and outreach in community, and really centering education in frontline communities and translating materials in multiple languages. So one big project that I'm working on is it's called the Green Building Handbook. It's basically a how-to guide for sustainable home improvement projects. And we have this huge equitable initiative to translate that into the top 10 languages in King County, do educational webinars, and work with nonprofits in the community to really elevate that work and bring in communities and folks who have maybe not had that accessibility to green building and sustainability before, and learn a little bit more about it. So that's just a little bit about the work that I do in King County. I grew up in California, born in Sacramento area, but then mainly grew up in Santa Cruz in the Monterey Bay region, beautiful coastal conservation hub. Went to Santa Cruz High School and then went to community college, and then transferred for a 4-year degree. So I was a transfer student. And yeah, what initially pulled me into sustainability was this plankton monitoring program that I went through at my community college. I vividly remember looking into a microscope and seeing beautiful zooplankton and phytoplankton. And there was this one moment where there was this little guy and he was really, really cute and he was playing with this little ball. And I was just sat there mesmerized watching him. And then all of a sudden he ate it. And I was very confused. And when I looked closely, I realized what he ate was a microplastic. And that completely shifted something in me. In that moment, I realized that even the smallest organism, the smallest action, and something that maybe we don't think about can have a really impactful consequence for better and or for worse. And I really wanted to be on the better side of things. Yeah, what stuck to me also in that community college setting was mentorship. So I always remind myself and realize that I might have not even had that opportunity to be in that plankton monitoring program if it weren't for a professor at the time that connected me to that program. At the time, I was working full time. I was super exhausted. I didn't really have like a focus of what I wanted to do. And I didn't consider myself as sciencey. I started in political science and wanted to do something in the policy realm, but found out that I didn't like political science curriculum. It was all about power, and I didn't believe in career politicians, and didn't have trust in that as well. So I was really trying to focus on what it is I could find meaning in, and I was able to have this incredible professor mentor me, and she sat me down and she was like, "Hey, you should sign up for this thing. I think it might actually spark something in you." And boy, was she right. It definitely sparked a whole lot into me, and she really saw something in me, and that changed my life. And yeah, I didn't know I would be in the sustainability field, and here I am.
Why can't I hear you? Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Grove, and I'm the director of our state energy office in Washington, which is housed in the Department of Commerce, which is a state agency. And I've been in my role as director for, let's see, I've been in the role, I don't actually know, 6 months maybe. But I've been with Commerce for about 5 years, working in government. And in the state energy office, we get to work on policy at the state level. We work very closely with governor's office and governor's advisor. Had a lot of fun under former Governor Inslee, where climate and energy was his top issue. And we got to work on a lot of great new policies and laws. And then we also work on implementing those laws. And those look like a lot of funding programs and investments out into communities, tribal communities, local governments. We also have a huge amount of federal money still today that we are getting in the hands of individuals. So for the first time, we've had a huge amount of money that we can directly get into the hands of individuals and low-income populations to reduce the energy burden make housing more affordable and living more healthy and affordable through things like heat pumps in homes, efficient cooling, efficient heating, solar energy systems, EV charging, all the things. So we've had some really great tools. We can talk about what the current picture looks like in the future in a bit. In addition, I wanted to kind of circle back to what you were saying. We also house, a lot of people don't know this, but we also house in our state energy office an emergency management function and team. And they actually work under Camp Murray. We have a whole state state emergency operations center, and we have an emergency management function of that. It's important because we have a lot of wildfires in our state. We have a lot of other natural disasters that can harm or have the potential to harm energy infrastructure. And so we have a whole team that is monitoring that. They get called into action to help mobilize staff, people to help with situations. Sometimes people also, our energy infrastructure is very critical and sensitive and has a lot of data. And so we do a lot to protect that data for our state so it doesn't become a target. I probably missed some other things we do, but that's enough. My career journey has not been linear at all. I am a UW alum, so I'm always happy to come back onto campus and try to see if I can remember where to find buildings. It's been a little bit since I graduated from here, but I got a business major. And I went straight into working in a corporation, very, very large corporation. I was one of like 30,000 people, working in technology, just finding my way, paying off bills. But I actually really got to hone and got really great exposure to a lot of things. In a huge company like that, I was able to move around, get promoted, learn how to supervise people, learn technical skills, learn a lot of soft skills. And then I realized I wanted to pursue a career that was more aligned with my environmental values and passions. And so I pivoted. I think I was around 29 when I did that pivot. And it did a lot of unpaid internships, was volunteering a lot with a lot of environmental NGOs. And then I found one that would take me on. I said, I will do anything. I will work part-time. I will be an office admin. I know how to use Outlook. Do you guys know? They're like, Linda actually uses the calendar. I'm like, you don't use the calendar. Let me show you how to do that. I'm like, I'll do anything. I just need to get my foot in the door. And I wasn't prepared to go back to school. And so I found that opportunity. And I started with a very small NGO working on clean energy at the community scale. And I think I was one of 6 people in the organization at the time. And then I went on to become the executive director of that nonprofit organization. And that was 20. Now I'm taking this, but that was like 22-ish years ago. But it was so amazing. I got to instantly translate and put to work my project management skills I had learned and gained in the private sector, my business acumen, financial analyst, analytical skills, correlate that directly into fundraising, did a lot of fundraising, and then really worked locally at the community level to grow the first actually community wind, community solar projects in our state. So a lot of gratification in that nonprofit setting. After being in the organization and leading that organization for 16 years and seeing all the action that was going on under Governor Inslee's leadership, I wanted to really be a part of that in a bigger way. And so that's when I jumped and joined the state to work on policy implementation. And it's been a wild ride since. Talk more about that later, but yeah, some great mentors along the way have helped me and encouraged me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm about to send my daughter off to college this fall. I could not convince her to go to UW. She's going to Cal Poly, just committed, but she's an environmental science major. So I'm really excited to hear from you and get inspired by you now as a parent of a college student. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more about what's on your minds. She's studying that, so that's good. Hi, many of you have seen me before, hopefully, and if not, we need to change that hopefully soon, because I do work here at the UW. My name is Emily Adams. I'm the Sustainability Project and Engagement Specialist, so I literally work right across the Red Square in that building in the basement, so come find me there. And my role at UW is to, hence the name, engage all of y'all in different sustainability opportunities and programs that are happening, such as HuES, such as what's going on with Earth Week, and many, many other opportunities throughout the school year. And in addition to that, projects that are happening around the campus. So if you went to any of the men's or women's basketball games or volleyball games this season, you might have had a reusable cup. And that is one of the projects that I worked on, and hopefully we will continue to work on. But that's what I get to do. And shockingly enough, our journey was relatively similar, non-linear, where once I graduated college, I went to work at Amazon, which did give me a lot of really excellent experience. And I was a project and product manager there, was able to translate those skills over here. So thankful for that experience. And I'm really happy I'm here now instead. But as far as the rest of that journey goes, I was born in Syracuse, New York, if any of you have ever been way upstate, which was at one point in time home to the world's most polluted lake. Since checking, it is not anymore. It's now just the United States' most polluted lake. So I guess another wins a win maybe. And I just remember that never really hit home. I didn't really understand the impact of that until I was much older. As a kid, I was just like, well, this sucks. I can't go swim on the 3 days it was actually warm up there. And then I went to school at USC, the real one that's down in South Carolina. And my freshman year, we had this huge flood that completely wrecked the city. A bunch of neighborhoods just washed away effectively, and it was dubbed the 100-year flood. It was something that had really not happened before in Columbia, South Carolina in modern history. But then we proceeded to have a 100-year flood every year that I was there, which I was like, something's weird with that. Come to realize it's because our climate's actively changing. But still, I was like, something to keep in mind. I want to continue to hopefully make money and then went to Amazon. But when I was at Amazon, I started to have sort of a similar thing where I was like, my personal values are not necessarily aligning. So I hopped on over to grad school at ASU and was able to get my master's of sustainability down there, and then was able to translate a lot of the learnings into what I was doing at Amazon. Specifically, I worked a lot in reducing food waste with Amazon Fresh. Couldn't tell you how they're doing now, but at the time we saved a lot of food, which is good. And now I'm here and it's great. And I'm still learning every day. So if you ask me a question, hopefully I'll know. Otherwise, I will hopefully know where to point you to. But yeah, I'm super stoked to be here.
Amazing. Thank you all for your fantastic introductions. I'm going to ask 1 or 2 questions and I'll open it up to the audience if you all have burning questions to ask the panelists. As some of you kind of touched on this about your winding career journey to where you are now, and I'm curious kind of more onto what drew you really into working in the environmental field and why you think your job is so important today. Political, social,
Yeah, okay, so I guess just to revisit my journey. So I said I was a community college student, but just to give a little bit more context there. I was a first generation student. I was independent, fully emancipated from my family, also low income, and navigating higher ed all at the same time. So when I was saying I was exhausted and working full time, I was really exhausted and working full time, and constantly questioned my belonging within the educational system and academics in general, just because I had no safety net and no really support from my family. and was independent. So my family was out of the picture at that time. And it was mentorship that really helped me get through that. I ended up transferring to California State University, Monterey Bay. In community college, went from political science to environmental engineering to biology, ended up getting 3 associate's degrees, then transferred and got my BS in environmental science, technology, and policy. And then moved here to Seattle immediately, jumped into environmental education consulting, and then into a fellowship into King County, which then helped me network and get the job that I'm in now. And for me, like that draw into the environmental field really stemmed from impact at the very beginning, when I started getting into it. Environmental work lets you affect everything, like every living species, whether or not they are aware of your impact or your action on them. And there's just something so deeply humbling and altruistic about that, that really resonates deeply within me. And also it's a personal connection for me. Growing up, I didn't have a connection to the environment. I never went camping as a kid. I didn't know anything about nature or anything like that. And when I was going through my emancipation process, nature ended up being that refuge for me. It was the first place in my life that I was able to feel calm and like, connected and safe, actually. I didn't have a safe place to go home to during that time. So especially in difficult times, that nature really just allowed me to connect with myself and feel that safety and that inspiration and just an awe in life. So that really shifted my thinking that nature is not a luxury and it's not this privilege of a few. It's actually a fundamental right, critical to the human experience, and really just a necessity and integral to everyone. So my work has really stemmed on creating that opportunity and that accessibility for other people to be able to connect with themselves and with others and just the beauty that is life in any sort of way that they can. So whether that's a park down the street or this beautiful tree in their neighborhood that's harboring a bunch of different species, or the building that they're in. Like we spend most of our time in buildings, and that's why green building work has been so inspiring to me, is because if I can create that sense of biophilia and connection and just safety in the buildings that we occupy day to day, just imagine how that might shift someone's thinking, whether it's direct or indirect as well. So yeah, it's really that personal connection for me. And I cannot stress enough, you'll probably get this from a lot of my answers, but mentorship is so important. It was a lot of mentors and also friends at the time that really let me see that my personal like affinity could also be a professional one too. And being able to bring that personal side and that lived experience as an asset to professional work was something that I did not think you could do. I thought that those were like two very separate things. And luckily in the realm of sustainability and environmental work, it's only amplified by your personal experience and identity. So yeah, that's what drew me. It's just like impact and wanting to allow others to experience the beauty of life.
Oh, no. Oh, great.
Gosh, hard to follow that. It's not beautiful. I feel like I'm the mom on the panel. I don't know if anybody else is a parent here, but for me right now, it is truly about the next generation and the legacy I want to leave behind. I mean, what pulled me in was a similar sense of very strong connection to the natural world and environment, and feeling a very strong responsibility to protect and preserve this beautiful state. I grew up in Olympia, come from a long line of logging family. I think not too hard to find a lot of logging roots in the Pacific Northwest, particularly in Washington. My father had a career in that, other grandfather, etc. Lived very close to Puget Sound, not quite on the beach, but pretty close. And so it was my playground was, I think, sticks. And the one thing I wanted most for my birthday was a tackle box. so I could go down and fish. Who knows what I was catching? Really bullheads and I don't know. Bullheads? Yeah. Fish you wouldn't really want to eat, but fun to catch. And that is just been part of my upbringing. It's part of the values I instill, my daughter and husband. And then channeling it into a career for me is I have a very, very strong bias towards action and worry. And so it was a place for me to park my worries and take action at the same time in a way in which, oh, maybe I could get paid, doing it too, right? And like going from protesting or doing activist work to, okay, maybe I can actually channel this into something I could get paid for. And have a place where I can go every day and channel, that action or that bias towards action and create, develop, remove barriers, all the things that I try to do and help my team do every day. I lost my thought. I was going to say something else about, I was going to say, and what keeps me in it is being able to see tangible results from the work that I do. So if I can see that I've helped, and I was just recently with a tribe, help them on their path towards energy sovereignty or energy resiliency by saying, hey, what is most worrying to you and what might we have in our toolbox at the state that could help you be the driver of your own destiny here and what you would like to do. And it's so empowering and enriching, and you took all my words. It's all, everything you said, it's just like fills my heart. Like it's truly emotional work for me to be able to support from behind, particularly communities that really have not had or do not have as many resources as others in our community or businesses or even government. So yeah, there's a lot of heart in the work and emotion. There's a lot of brain power that just taxes me every day, and there's a lot of physicality of just showing up and like being out in community and using your energy that way. But it's just so rewarding at the same time. So a little bit.
You're next.
Yeah, honestly, I think what got me into sustainability was curiosity. Like I always had questions about like, what happens when this happens? It's like very much so the 5-year-old stage where you're like, why? And I feel like that very much so continued when I went to college. Obviously when going to college in the South, not nearly as well equipped for sustainability in general or equity down there. And so seeing that really just again prompted me to ask more questions, and then I would go and ask others those questions or go online, thank God for Google, and like research those. And the more that I learned, the more I was like, why does no one else care about this? Like I feel like this is critically undercared for. And I was like, cool, this is going to be my thing that I'm going to fully invest myself in. I'm going to hyper focus and hyper fixate on it, and it's going to be my whole personality now. And I think it's now my livelihood, so I think it turned out pretty well. And what keeps me going is like, one, this sense of hope, not to get sap or play to the crowd, but obviously like all of y'all being here is so important, and it fills me genuinely with so much hope that people care. It's not just me, it's not just a few. People do care, and the more of us that care, the more of us that go out and continue to talk on it to get others to care, to loop them in, the more of an impact that we will have overall. And I think that understanding that I as an individual can do what I can do, but I am one of 8 billion people can feel very overwhelming. But again, like recognizing that there are people in this room that also want to make a change feels so good, because I'm like, if you're one grain of sand, then it's like, no, whatever. But if there's like a lot of grains of sand, you can create a sandstorm. Not to once again go back to South Carolina, but for context, Sandstorm by Deruta is like our school song, so. But yeah, what keeps me going is all of y'all being here, so please keep showing up. I appreciate that, thank you.
I would say for me, I actually did not think I was doing environmental or sustainability work for a long, long time, similar to what you were saying, Timothy. Like, I did not grow up that much. Like, I grew up here, but not much in like camping and doing naturey things, like being really frank with my family and also sometimes my culture. Like, they're like, if you pay for rent and mortgage, why are you going outside? Why are you sleeping outside? And I feel like environment is not even really a career pathway that they acknowledge as much. But it's like that saying, I feel like, where you don't really realize what you have until it's gone. And I think it's a lot of these big hazards that I was seeing impact the areas around us, as well as, my hometown and my home country too. Like, if you've got lots of floods, like people are trapped at home, they're losing their infrastructure. When there's big droughts, you're losing a lot of crops, like, that affects food prices and everything. And I feel like that really showed me that even if you think it's not about climate, a lot of things are tied to it. Like, one thing we really love is we love our food. And so much of that is impacted by climate and driven by a lot of policies, driven by, a lot of climate and environmental conditions. So I think then I always knew that I was interested in science. I always knew I cared about health and public health. But I think it was really like talking to the people around me and learning from them, and like you were saying, mentorship, but also from my peers. I think they had a really different relationship to the environment. Well, for them, it was, it was a form of spiritualism. For them, it was a form of sustenance. For some people, it was their livelihood. So I think just really learning from the people around me, especially when I came to UW, was a huge impetus for me to realize, well, maybe I'm interested in climate work. Like, me, it really does intersect with everything. As I think, as we see, especially when it comes to extreme heat, for example, like, even though it is just classified as weather, really extreme conditions, like the 2021 Northwest heat dome, like, we had a lot of unfortunate mortalities in King County because of that. And I think it just shows that climate, it's not just about the environment, it also really has to tie into public health. Like, it's a public health concern, but also very strongly, it is an equity concern because of people that are the most directly impacted. A lot of it does have to do with, disproportionate disinvestment. It has to do with cycles of racism. It has to do with, like, generational poverty. So I think like seeing that firsthand and also being able to talk to my peers and exchange ideas, that was really, really formative for me. And I think that's what really led me towards the space, realizing that, like, I'm not just looking at a map of the weather every single day. That's not climate. A lot of it is going out into the community and, hearing from folks and actually coming up with different plans and programs to help, alleviate a lot of the concerns and prepare for them. And that's kind of what we do in our work. I didn't go too much into it. I'm happy to go into it later if there are any questions, but just to kind of summarize what keeps me going. A lot of what I've had the privilege to do is the opportunity to work with lots of folks at the county, but also our local cities, and community members and other nonprofits that serve more at-risk or vulnerable community members, just being able to work with them, and realize, how does climate impact their lives? And again, my focus is extreme heat. So how does that impact their lives? What do they see? What are some solutions that are actually accessible, not just words on a paper that sound good, but how can we actually implement them and use them? So I feel like just seeing tangible impact, like you were saying, has been really, really helpful and really beneficial for me. But it's not just people sitting in an ivory tower that have the right credentials and went to the right colleges. It's actually people that are coming together from different backgrounds, and from different walks of life to actually develop solutions that will be used and will be utilized and will actually help people. I think that is what really inspires me, gives me a lot of work, a lot of hope. And also just the amount of people that are interested in all the different life experiences that you bring. Like, no one person is going to have the same perspective. So I think just the ability to continue learning from each other, but also be part of a group and a collective where we make each other stronger and we enrich each other. I think that this has been really inspiring for me. And I continue to learn a lot, not just from my peers, but also people that I talk to, even coming to panels and like learning from you all and your interests. Like, that is super helpful and very motivational and inspirational for me.
Fantastic. Thank you everyone for sharing how you got to your current career journey. Before I'll do one more question before I open it up. You all talked about how you got into the environmental field. I'd like to hear more about what your current role entails, and especially since a lot of students are looking for internships, jobs. What do you think are some of the most important skill sets that you've developed throughout your career that potentially could be a learning?
I can start. So for my role, what I was hired on to do is to develop a heat mitigation strategy, not just for King County government, but also for our partners, like I was mentioning, so local city governments, as well as community organizations. So these are just different actions that folks can take to better prepare for and respond to the impacts of extreme heat. So what that actually looks like is first building upon a foundation of existing data. So what does extreme heat look like? What are people doing across the country? But then a lot of it was then talking to people, like I was mentioning, that are actually impacted, and that, what are their challenges? What are the kind of solutions they would use? So I think a lot of it is talking to a lot of different subject matter experts, and a lot of community members and a lot of different people that have been doing this work for a long time, and working together to come up with what are some actionable plans. And now that we've developed it and released it last year, my main focus is now figuring out how we're going to implement this. So how are we actually going to make it usable for people? How are we going to find the funding? How are we going to find the staff capacity? How are we going to keep checking in with people? So I think a lot of what I do definitely entails organization. I mean, I'm sure y'all heard that quite a bit, but being able to organize and meet deadlines, there's gonna be a lot of information coming your way and a lot of different priorities, a lot of different perspectives. So how are you organizing that? And also how are you ensure that you're keeping everybody in the loop and keeping the promises and kind of the accountability that people are gonna hold you to? I think another really big one is resourcefulness. I'm sure you all are very familiar with being busy all the time, especially college students. So I think a lot of it is when you join the workforce, a lot of people are going to be extremely busy as well, since they have a lot of competing priorities, and a lot of people can already have many projects on their plate. So it's sort of like finding things out yourself and developing, your own work plan, doing your own background research before bringing it to other folks so that they can just kind of more reflect and collaborate. And I think the other one that I'll mention that's really useful is adaptability, just because things can change all the time, as we can tell with our turbulent federal climate. That is the word I will use. But things can really change all the time. So being able to adapt to that, as well as being able to adapt to all the things you're hearing, is because I know a lot of academia can sometimes be, oh, these facts and these figures are always right, but there's a lot of lived experience that is not captured or does not have the opportunity to be voiced. So I think a lot of it is you may hear perspectives that maybe clash with your own or you did not consider before. So figuring out how you're going to adapt those and include those. And I think just some other notes. I've been on a lot of hiring panels recently for our team, which I love a growing team. But just some little insider tips I feel like I've heard from our panels that we've had recently, like our evaluation and our interview panels, is even though it is important, I guess the preface is by saying it definitely does vary on which role you're applying to. But for us, we found that a lot of it was kind of similar to my work, where it's project management or keeping things moving forward and collaborating on different projects. So it was more so less like the hard technical science knowledge, but it was more so that can you demonstrate the ability to kind of meet your targets and to collaborate with others and to keep projects going onwards. I think that was really important. And not only doing the work, but also how you communicate the work you've done, because you can have a huge list of accomplishments, but if you are not as clear about what you did, your role, and the results, I think that is a really important part of it. But I know a lot of people can sometimes struggle with talking about yourself, but that actually is pretty important, I think, so people are aware of, what you've done, how you did it. I think that was really helpful. I think one more thing I'll note from our panels that we really liked seeing too is just, like I mentioned, the ability to kind of collaborate. I know that's been a huge one. Just, I'm sure you've heard that a lot as well, but it is important to be able to definitely track just how you work with others on projects and how that's really factored into your time. Yeah, I'll stop there.
I definitely retweet everything Danya has to say there. So yeah, my job, I was hired on to do a lot of different things. So I kind of talked about that earlier, like the green building, technical assistance for capital projects, some education and outreach. Since then, I've done a lot of other different types of projects, doing huge data analysis and gathering projects for the county. For different green building rating systems, such as like LEED for cities. They have a LEED certification for a city and a county. So it's a huge scale data project. I'm leading that for the county right now. It's called the JUST label. It's a social equity framework for organizations to benchmark their like social equitable policies for their employees. So that's an initiative that I'm doing. A lot of these like technical things, but every single project that I've ever had to do is definitely amplified by those soft skills in the project management. And yeah, I definitely cannot stress those soft skills enough. I think some of the most important skills that I use day to day in the job were unfortunately not taught in a classroom. They were really informed through lived experience, the reflection of that lived experience, and also learning from failure. Those are really what taught me the skills and those soft skills as much as possible. I think the three big skills for me that show up that I would definitely recommend everyone to really spend some time focusing on is just your own emotional intelligence, self-awareness of your lived experience, and empathy for others. That's really at the core of everything I do. It's one thing to have those technical skills, and I've seen a lot of candidates who are PhDs have these crazy technical skills and like super deep knowledge of things that I would not understand, but they're not able to translate their soft skills or not able to connect with the panel, or have that self-awareness or that emotional intelligence to just like be in that moment and read a room. You know, that's such an incredible skill to develop. The technical side will come in any job. I did not have any green building expertise when I started my role, and now I have a bunch. So again, those soft skills are really important, because those also help navigate that human side of sustainability, which is honestly the hardest part of it. Like, let's be real. Like, the truth is that the climate isn't what's fighting back, it's the people that are. So if you can't build trust and form partnerships and understand where folks are coming from, then your ideas are just not going to be sustained and not met. And yeah, being able to like read that room, hold space for different perspectives, and also be able to translate complex information in language that is accessible to communities are the game changers in the industry right now. It's really about scaling and less of like that innovative tech. And yeah, building trust within like the government sector and with nonprofits and the community sector is really crucial for scaling and amplifying the work that we do and building momentum. Another two big ones are curiosity and humility. I think those are really, really huge. There are constantly new frameworks, new policies, new technology in the field. And just being able to say, I don't know, but I'd love to learn and find out is massive. And just being able to be open to feedback and constantly evolve your mindset is really what's going to sustain that work in the long run. You know, sometimes at the table, it's not like what expertise is there that matters. It's the willingness to grow in that table together. So yeah, I cannot stress those soft skills enough.
Good, same playbook. So what got me to where I am now, it's really the soft skills. And it's project management you were talking about, fundraising, people management, relationship building, negotiation. That comes in to play a lot, whether it's negotiating a particular clause of a law, a contract, or it's simply like selling an idea, right? Because I need you to help me do the thing. I think, yeah, and so I think I told you enough about what I do in my office, so I won't repeat that, but I do oversee a team of 130 folks right now. It's a large team for me. I've hired a lot of people in my career, and when faced with someone who's got, just to kind of go back to a comment we made, with really deep technical skills, credentials, MPA, PhD, like all the things, and someone who can show me that they've led a project from concept and a project team, not even directly supervising, but coordinated a project idea all the way through implementation, or a specific role they played in that, I will take that person over the technical deep skill any day, because I can teach them the technical skills that they need to know, and look for that, right? And I look for learning. The biggest thing I look for when hiring folks is the growth mindset. And you spoke to that towards the end. But that's so important right now because people switch jobs really quickly. And so I'm like, okay, if we're only gonna have this human capital for maybe 2 years at most, before they go on to the next thing, what can they come in instantly, and then how quickly can they learn? How, what demonstrates that they can learn quickly? Because I would not expect someone to come in, especially in government, and know how to navigate or do all the things in the pretty job script descriptions where we ask for the unicorn, we never get the unicorn coming in the door. And so I'm looking for demonstration of where they were able to show that they've learned something, how they applied that skill that they've learned, or whatever it may be, talent, develop that talent, and then want to do more of that. I want someone coming in the door who wants to continue to grow. So don't be afraid, when you're in those interviews or when you're talking and doing informational interviews or with your mentor, I think a lot of people read the job descriptions, and I'm literally about to send one out tomorrow. And I'm realizing yeah, people are going to read that and think, oh, I can't do that. But hopefully I encourage them. I only got our HR to put in a paragraph that says, even after reading this, if you don't feel that, don't be discouraged if you cannot meet all these qualifications. We still want to hear from you, and that's really wholeheartedly true, is don't get discouraged. And you probably have more skills in your basket than you realize. So think about that when you're applying for those jobs. Another thing is just develop really versatile skills and be adaptable. I have that in my notes as well. So you can transfer across sectors, across industries, and be expansive in your thought process of where you want to go with your career. Environmental fields can be, very straight into science or public policy, but you could work for a utility. I had never thought about that before. I work with them all the time. There's a lot in our state. They employ a lot of people, actually well-paying jobs. And you could work on really critical energy or climate initiatives in government. We have well representation here, corporations. The climate is going to continue to be an issue. And even though there are federal setbacks and significant headwinds right now, there are other drivers that are going to continue to push our society, I believe, in the direction of decarbonization and more environmental health for our planet. There are economic drivers where it simply is more cost effective to go to cheaper sources of energy and technologies like solar or other renewable resources. There are technological advances that are being worked on all the time, right? And those do have some intersection with federal policy, but they're going to continue to move because the private sector can make money on them or whatever the thing is. So, yes, there are a lot of hard headwinds. It's super rough right now. I've been in the field for 20 plus years now, and I've been through recessions. I've been through a lot of political turmoil. I have never been, I'm going to be honest, in something this bad. It really feels bad right now. At the same time, we need your energy. I need your energy. I'm tired every day. I need your energy. We need the fresh energy. We need your ideas. We need you to help sustain the movement that, I don't know when I get to exit, but when I feel like I finally can exit, I want to feel like there's a whole wave, and I know that there is, but I want you to feel encouraged to be part of that wave to help sustain and help move us along. Last thing I'll say is build relationships before you need to use them. And so relationships are capital, right? And not just to help you get the next job or be a reference or be a mentor. Those are all great things on their own. But the environmental movement it's small relative to other movements. And the issue, even in public opinion polls, it's just hard to get attention because it's the thing that you said it really well. It hurts when it's gone, right? Or it hurts when it's polluted. It hurts when we don't. But when it's, oh, I can still breathe healthy air, I can go to the park still or have access. I'm not really thinking about it, right? Until it's gone, taken away or threatened. And so we can't, none of us and none of our agencies or where we work can do it alone. This movement in the environmental sector needs a lot of collaboration. It relies deeply on collaboration. And so you will be building relationships as individuals, but you will be building relationships in whatever profession you go into because the movement requires it. So think about building those relationships in an ongoing way. Think of it as like a to-do. I would like really encourage you to think of it as this is something that you should be genuinely doing. Yeah, so relationships. I'll leave it there. Save some time for you.
I was gonna say, answering this question last as someone that loves to yap is so tough because I have like nothing of value to add. With the exception of learning how to adjust how you present projects for value proposition is going to take you so far. And not to use the word manipulate, but kind of manipulate whatever project you want to into becoming something that is sustainability oriented. Like you can go to, realistically, not everyone here is going to have the word sustainability in their job title once they leave school if you decide to pursue a career, hopefully you do. But you can, the work that you do doesn't have to like stop at your job title. It very much so can go outside of that. You can say, hi manager, I want to save you $500,000 every year by creating this program that cuts our food waste. And your manager's gonna be like, sounds great, love that idea. And then in the same process, you're saving hundreds of pounds of food. So that was the Amazon example from earlier. But yeah, just understand who you're talking to, learn your audience, and then speak to that in order to achieve what you need to and want to.
Thank you all for answers to those questions. I know we're running a little short on time, so I'd like to open it up to the audience if anyone wants to ask any questions to the panelists. Yeah.
I have a very general question, so if anyone was like,
Go for it.
to ask, no, okay. What are, I guess it's fine for your little speech, what are wins, I guess, that you all would like or feel comfortable to share with us, like, I don't know, something helpful, right, to end it off, so.
I had a hard day today. There's just a lot. There really are a lot of wins. Actually, today we issued a press release where we got to announce, around 36 million in new funding for community-led energy projects, running the gamut from folks wanting to do microgrid projects to solar projects to transportation projects. And this was brought to you by the Climate Commitment Act, which is our state's climate pricing market law. And that is something I'm just extremely proud of my team, who the legislature enacted this funding, but then they said it's going to be contingent on the initiative that was on the ballot this last November. If you voted, you saw it on there. And fortunately, we were able to protect the Climate Commitment Act. Voters strongly actually said, yes, we care about climate in our state and this law should stay on the books. But what that meant is my team had January 1 came, had less than really 3 months to stand up a brand new program and get this money out into community before the end of this biennium, which is June. And so we got super creative. I shifted staff onto it, shifted teams. I'm like, this is what we're gonna do. We have a wait list from other projects. Let's figure out if we can make this really simple application. Simple for government, but still simple for us. And just go out and see if they could just submit a new scope of work on an existing idea they had already presented to us, and like quickly get this money out while still doing the proper due diligence on behalf of the public. So that's our role in government. And we just announced that today. So that's a win. And I think we've got 5 million left over that I saw my team is gonna present that next week to me, so we got more coming. Also, I think a win is the tribes in our state. We have, you don't know, 29 federally recognized tribes in our state. And I think, at least in my department, we've done a really good job of honoring tribal sovereignty and true tribal government to government relationship. And something that was very a high interest to me, but honestly, I actually didn't really know that much about how the government to government relationship worked or wasn't working in our state. So it's been a really good learning opportunity for me, but also just eye-opening of how much we can actually influence and open doors and have the power to do. And just my small team and unit, it's been just pretty amazing. One thing we did actually, this is one of the more political things I've worked on in my career. We actually, as a state agency in my team, selected a project to be funded for, well, it's in the news, so I can talk about it now. A tidal energy project that wanted to do some research and development in our state off of waters in Skagit Bay. We'd gone through our internal process. This looked like a great technology to maybe explore. For all our grantees, we require them to do tribal consultation. It's part of our funding. The grantee went to go do it. They didn't do it in a very culturally appropriate way. It really enraged many tribes. Why are we finding about this project that's going to be hosted in our waters that has potential to affect our fishing rights, our treaty rights, all the things. Our brand new agency director got a lot of phone calls. All these things started happening. So I got together with our tribal liaison in our agency. We worked really well together, and I was like, we don't need to fund this, and we probably should not. We don't need this energy to be developed right now in our state. It's a lower priority. It's an emerging technology, the technology that we're interested in, but at the cost of what it's already costing us reputationally, but also like potentially the harms that it could create. Why would we? And so I have never been part of a project where we publicly said, hold back our money. So we did that. We pulled back our money. And then we, like the tribes, did a press release and all the things. And we also met with the company who was developing the project and said, hey, this is why, but also, tribes are important and have a voice in our state. And here's some things we would recommend you do if you want to continue to pursue this technology. So let us help you understand the communities that you may be affecting. Still on you to do that work, but how to do it respectfully. So there's an example of a win, but also a win on something we decided not to do as government and felt like the right thing to do.
I'll just say we're really hard past time and we need to head back. Totally. But if there's still, is that mind if I out? Okay, or do you have the answer?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about that. I'll try to keep this short, and it's really about perspective, right? And the context of where we are and the levels of it. So I think locally, I feel like personally, I've hit a jackpot working in King County and in this area. There is genuine investment and leadership and sustainability here. And yeah, green jobs and also having equity focused climate work, like that's happening here and we're staying resistant to the federal backlashes and everything. Regionally, momentum is also very strong. You're hearing a lot of work from Jennifer, and there's just a lot of leading in climate adaptation and green building and decarbonization work in the West Coast specifically. And yeah, well, nationally, that's a little bit more depressing to think about between like the, everything, budget cuts, political rhetoric, backlash on TEI and climate initiatives. But I think I just want to like remind folks that every backlash does have a backlash, and our generation is watching all of this unfold, right? And I'm seeing our generation being more, they're being more like resilient and using their voice more, and yeah, just trying to stand up against this and being more relentless, and that's very deeply inspiring. So while it can be frustrating and deeply discouraging, and every morning feels like I'm still have but just, knowing fire for our generation. And then also, if we're looking past the national government, internationally, I'm very deeply inspired and hopeful. There is a huge climate leader movement globally happening, especially among youth and frontline communities. And that's super hopeful to see. So while the security of this realm fluctuates between like the context of where you are, just reminding yourself that this may just be happening at this national level, but the good stuff is still happening all over. So just reminding yourself of that perspective. And maybe think outside of the United States for a little bit. That's been really cool to see. And also like the work locally, like that's what a lot of the masses in the United States does. People think of politics, they think of federal, but not necessarily local. I think that there's a huge gap in that education and empowerment that
To start with, I'm not sure we have in our office, we have a sub-team that focuses on climate and workforce, and that's kind of exactly what they're looking at. And there actually is quite a bit that is happening in the private sector. Maybe it's not quite represented on this panel, but I think just today my coworkers tell me that there was an article that came out where there was 150,000 green jobs that were generated in 2023. And this is looking at more the energy transition. So if you look at like solar and more other forms of renewable energy, but also the contracting. So when it comes to building the infrastructure, we talk about more energy efficiency, we talk about renewable energy. A lot of that is either funded by private companies or they are a stake of that when it comes to infrastructure development and deployment. So there definitely is space that is something growing. I know there was a huge push for that with the Infrastructure Reduction Act. And even though I know those funds are definitely a little bit tenuous, it still is a move that is continuing because like you were saying, sometimes it is just good business sense. Like, especially as we go towards a future where fossil fuels are going to become less and less available and renewable energy will be required, it'll probably end up being a more affordable option. And in some cases it already is. I think there will be more of a move and more popularization towards that for sure. And I know on the more corporate side of things, even though it is definitely phrased and approached differently than it is on the more public side of things, there is like the whole environmental social governance side of things. And again, I know it's not presented the same way, but there is some effort that corporations are making. And I think a lot of it has to do with what you were saying, Timothy, where there is definitely a huge, like a big perspective around it is important to look at the environment, look at, the whole climate piece. It is important to factor that into how corporations work. And yes, it unfortunately is under attack right now because of what's going on at the federal level. But I still think that it is going to be important moving forward because again, it's just going to make at some point better economic sense. But I'll hand it up to you all.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to add here is I don't know this realm as much, and that's fine. I'm going to be pursuing grad school to understand this a little bit more later this year. But public-private partnerships are essential right now, and especially for climate financing and sustainable financing opportunities so that we can scale technologies. So those partnerships are really crucial, and that's where I think our global sustainability leadership needs to be. So yeah, there's a quote that I gave you guys earlier where it's like being able to say, I don't know, but I'm gonna go learn. That's what I'm doing right now. But there's definitely a lot of potential there for sure.
Yeah, so you actually summarized it beautifully. There are definitely the corporate job sphere changes based off of trends. So a few years ago, it was much more popular for there to be more like green jobs, as the title itself suggests. But now if you look at a lot of those same jobs, the title has changed, but the job description has not necessarily. So that also allows companies to not necessarily pigeonhole a particular role into only doing that. It's again kind of speaking to the value proposition that I mentioned earlier. So just a lot of companies, in order to one, protect themselves from being targeted with the current climate now, have just changed what the words are, but not necessarily what they're doing. And I would just recommend like to start to recognize like a couple of like patterned words in job descriptions that you're like, interesting, they actually mean this, like efficiency usually tends to gear towards sustainability. That being said, there are definitely a lot that have been like cut off the face of corporate America because of what's going on. But yeah, I would just look more creatively into what the job descriptions actually are, because there's a shocking amount.
I'd say the same thing. Look expansively, because I think there's things that, you know, smell and look and are easily like, that's a green job. But there are a lot that like banking, finance, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking about all the banks that lend on green projects or have green products they develop. Those are jobs, right? Those are people that are in the finance industry. We have a huge clean tech community in our state, very thriving, and a lot of VC venture capital money invested into startup companies and bigger companies. There's the corporate sustainability reps. There's sustainability in that name, but in big companies, there is just, I would just encourage you to think expansively when you're thinking sort of what might constitute a green job. Also, I just have to say data centers. We have a lot of big ones in our state. The Governor Ferguson has a task force on data centers because they consume a lot of power. And as we move to decarbonization and AI, we're gonna need, right, those big data centers. They provide a lot of economic development, but they also have a lot of challenges with getting the power they need, the supply to power them. So there's just, it's such an interconnected world, and you might not think anything related to that is a green job, but there are a lot of green jobs related just to even, right, thinking about that problem and how to solve it. So I don't know, that one was just on my mind.
I definitely agree. And one of my struggles is there's a lot of greenwashing going on.
Yes,
And
that's true.
it's become increasingly difficult to tell. And I personally, I would rather trust public employer, like, you know, county and state, local government. You know, there's a limited amount of jobs in the public sector too. So thank you for your perspective.
Also just limited jobs across the board right now.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but.
Well, we admire you for just saying
Yeah.
that. Like hearing that you trust public employees is huge. Yeah. Yeah. Because yeah, that's been a lot of the work that our generation and what the workforce right now in the public sector is trying to do. So.
Words, a little bit of pressure, but.
Yeah, you know, the biggest thing that I'm gonna say is mentorship, you know, like that is really single-handedly what has helped me do the opportunities that I've gotten and be able to network and do that. So being able to just go up to someone who is inspirational to you, or you admire, or it has a job that seems interesting to you, or maybe you want their job, just introducing yourself and starting that conversation and being very candid, and asking for mentorship, is a huge superpower that you can have. Also, I would recommend to also pay that horizontally as well. Peer-to-peer mentorship is, if not, I think, more important than that like traditional form of mentorship. There's been so many times that just a friend, a colleague, a family member, or someone was able to go on a walk with me, or just text me after a really hard meeting that I had and said, "You got this," or just being able to like sit down and decompress and vent about my experience with my friends, like that has saved me so many times. And being able to pay that forward together and empower each other as a peer, really is going to keep sustaining your passions and your momentum and your career as well. So mentorship. That's really what I got to say.